Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome back to our Explainers series, where we take apart history's most fascinating moments piece by piece. Today, we're looking at the dramatic turning point of the D.B. Cooper story. We're going to zero in on the exact chilling moments when a totally ordinary flight transformed into a legendary crime. Part 1. The Thanksgiving Eve Flight. So, picture this. It's November 24th, 1971. Now, this wasn't just some random Wednesday. It was the day before Thanksgiving in America. You know the drill. High stress, massive crowds. Everyone is just absolutely desperate to get home for the holidays. The energy across the whole country was frantic. Down on the ground, you've got these packed, chaotic holiday airports filled with travelers just rushing everywhere. But high above the Pacific Northwest, Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 was cruising peacefully. Outside, thick white clouds stretched endlessly beneath the Boeing 727. And inside, the cabin was perfectly tranquil. Passengers were chatting quietly, flipping through their newspapers, completely unaware that history was about to change. Part 2. Seat 18C and the Note. Up in the air, the man in Seat 18C, who introduced himself simply as Dan Cooper, was incredibly unsuspicious. He wore a neat, dark business suit and a perfectly straight, narrow black tie. He had on dark sunglasses that completely hid his eyes, making his expression impossible to read. And he kept a simple black briefcase right next to him. Showing absolutely no signs of nervousness, he just sat there perfectly still, calmly sipping a bourbon and soda. Because he looked so normal, no one had searched him. Now, his very first move was executed with unhurried precision. It's so remarkably chill. First, he calmly removes a small piece of paper from his pocket and jots down a short message. Next, he folds the note exactly once. And then, he simply waits for the flight attendant to walk past his row. There were no dramatic movements, no rush, absolutely no hesitation. As flight attendant Florence Schaffner approached, Cooper politely smiled and handed her the folded paper. Now, assuming it was just another harmless attempt at flirting, she slipped the unread note straight in her purse. And you have to remember, incidents like this weren't unusual at all for flight attendants in 1971. They actually got phone numbers or friendly messages from traveling businessmen all the time. But Cooper just watched her for a brief moment. Then he leaned forward slightly. "Miss, you'd better read that note. I have a bomb." His voice was totally calm, almost completely emotionless. The realization of that chilling command hit Florence instantly. Trembling, she slowly pulled the note out of her purse and unfolded the paper. It was short, it was direct, and it was literally impossible to misunderstand. "I have a bomb in my briefcase. Sit beside me." In that single moment, the quiet cabin just faded away. The engine noise, the conversations, the smiling passengers, none of it mattered anymore. Part 3. Inside the black briefcase. Florence quietly sat beside him in row 18 without drawing any attention to herself. He looked directly at her and said, "I don't want anyone hurt, but everyone must follow my instructions." His voice never changed. It remained entirely calm, controlled, and totally professional. This wasn't the manic energy of a desperate criminal, right? This was someone completely and utterly in charge of the situation. Without saying another word, Cooper slowly placed the black briefcase on his lap and popped it open just enough for Florence to see inside. And what she saw froze her in fear. Several red cylinders, carefully connected wires, a large battery, precision electrical components. Whether the device was real or fake didn't even matter in that moment. It looked completely, terrifyingly convincing. Then, Cooper gently closed the briefcase. Part 4. The Demands of D.B. Cooper. Now that he had established absolute control, Cooper transitioned to his specific, rehearsed instructions. He anchored his demands with a massive sum, $200,000. To put that into perspective, adjusted for inflation today, that is well over $1 million. He stated exactly what he was after, leaving zero room for negotiation. But the money wasn't all he wanted. The rest of his demands showcased just how meticulous this whole plan was. The $200,000 had to be entirely in $20 bills. He demanded 4 parachutes, 2 primary and 2 reserve. And finally, he required a fuel truck to be waiting beside the aircraft immediately after landing in Seattle. Every single demand sounded carefully planned, as though he had rehearsed this exact moment dozens of times. Nothing more, nothing less. Florence listened carefully. She nodded once, memorizing every single word. She walked up to the cockpit without alarming a single passenger. It was just an incredible show of quiet bravery. Behind her, Cooper simply leaned back into his seat, took another sip of his drink, and quietly watched the clouds outside the window. Part 5. An Unsolved American Mystery. For everyone else on Flight 305, it was still just another ordinary flight. But when Florence delivered that message to the captain, it triggered an event of massive historical significance. This became the only unsolved commercial airplane hijacking in American history. That one quiet conversation in seat 18C launched one of the largest and most exhaustive manhunts the FBI has ever conducted. Over the next 50 years, the investigation became absolutely legendary. The sheer scale was staggering. We're talking thousands of suspects investigated and millions of dollars spent combing through forests and tracking serial numbers. Yet, eventually, the FBI case was officially closed. To this day, the real identity of the man who calmly called himself Dan Cooper remains completely unknown.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question. Did D.B. Cooper actually survive? Did he pull off the perfect crime, vanishing into the harsh Pacific Northwest wilderness without leaving a single trace? Or did the elements claim him the very night he jumped? The evidence is scarce, the theories are endless, and the mystery of the man with the black briefcase endures. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in the next one.